when he fell down a second time, I was like, oh, this is not good. For the first time, I thought he just slipped. It's hard to tell. It's wild. It's in the moment. I thought he slipped. And then when he got up and he threw a kick again, I'm like, oh, I don't like how his leg just gave out. That didn't seem like... I'm still hoping he's just slipping.
Yeah.
I'm hoping he's just freaking out because he hasn't been in the octagon in 5 years. And then he started moving around and he like grabbed his knee and buckled.
Okay.
And there was some conversation.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, there was some conversation going on between him and Max Holloway. And I was like, Max is saying he can't fight, like something's wrong. And he's saying, fight me. He's like, get up. And so he lets him up, and then his knee buckles, and then the referee stops the fight.
Yeah.
McGregor said today, I don't know if you've seen this yet, that his next fight has to be Max Holloway. It absolutely must be Max. After the fights, you said not interested in running that one back. Is that still something that you're like, yeah, I don't know why we would do that?
Not even thinking about it.
Is that because on Max's side, it's also you're going to hang him up?
Conor still has to have knee surgery.
Yeah.
And go through...
Have you talked to him since the fight? Yeah.
And go through everything that he's going to have to go through. And I understand, listen, he's very unhappy with the way it played out, but you're a human being, you're older, you haven't fought in 5 years, and your body, listen, Father Time is undefeated, okay? Yeah. Who knows what's going to happen with Max over the next, year, and what's going to happen with Conor over the next years. I don't even think about that type of stuff until it becomes a reality.
Conor McGregor was hurt before the fight. He knows I can't compete in there. My knee is fucked. But I've done this training camp and I've finally got the UFC to finally give us a fucking fight. I've hyped the fuck out of it. We've got all these pay-per-view buys coming in. We're breaking the record gate in the UFC. Do I pull out and fuck $30 million up the wall, or do I get in that cage, make it look like I got the injury in there, get the doctor stoppage and cash that fucking $30 million check? Just think how many opportunities like this is he going to get again? We all know.
Conor, how well does he do?
Sparks out Max in like the first round. But who knows what he actually has been doing. We know he's been partying, but has he also been like really training? He somehow or another sparks out Max in like the first round. Do you know how big he becomes? Him and Justin Gaethje, the biggest fight in the history of the known universe.
I did not think the fight was going to end like that. A lot of people said that he was injured for the fight.
When they did the replay and he took the Crocs off, he didn't put weight on that right leg. I know he was throwing it in the locker room.
Do you think that something happened between when he was throwing the kicks inside the locker room? Those were dynamic kicks, and then he goes to fight. Do you think he injured himself in between that point, or do you think he was already injured or had a nagging injury before?
Brian Ortega hurt himself being announced in the octagon.
Snaps his foot, and he winces in pain. Fuck! I fucking hate my life! This is the one fucking escape I get, and it's shit! And McGregor's just limping around like my fucking man! Fuck!
Max, big mistake going back to 45 after he did 55.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just too hard on the body. Who's a thick 55 when he fought Justin? He looked good, man.
Yeah.
He looked solid at that weight. Him fighting at that weight, he could actually fight. Going down to 45, it looked to me like he was compromised. Like, I think the weight cut was just
it was too much.
Especially when...
At some point, Max is going to slow down. Prior to the Oliveira fight, he wasn't slowing down at any point. So there's a million questions there. How's he going to look at 170? I think that's a really interesting thing that not enough people are talking about. Just with that extra weight, I don't think it will be a huge deal, because probably when he's fighting at 55, he's getting, like, I suspect Max is going to weigh in at like 168. I don't think he's going to struggle to make 170.
I mean, he's a big boy. Well, I was with him one time in Hawaii, and his ass was at 185.
Yeah, so I'm just curious how he looks. And then obviously there's like a gazillion stories with Conor, the layoff, the injuries, all the other shit that he's had to deal with, the body. And then there's just like the silk pajamas thing, right? Like the Marvin Hagler line. Is he really truly motivated at this stage with all that success and fame and fortune and all that? Is he truly motivated to push himself like he was 10 years ago? Does he have that chip on his shoulder? Like, but a lot of bad stuff has happened over the last couple of years to him. And his Q rating has gone down.
Yeah,
and maybe
I would
that's
love to believe all these conspiracy theories and these, but the fact of it is, the truth of it is, It was
Yeah,
a freak accident. It was a fucking
Okay.
freak accident. He's not going to show
think
up just
so.
to get paid. He's not going to show up and have a shitty fight to prove a point. Like, haha, you guys iced me. That, bro, the feelings he's dealing with right now isn't. He would rather have fucking made $0 and at least got to go out there and perform and maybe drop Max and maybe lose a decision for $0. He would take that
why it's so scary.
than taking it what had happened. And way to bring
Because that body language, so much of it was screaming out to someone like me who knows McGregor the way I've been watching him so closely for so many years, analysing him for video after video after fucking video. I fucking know some shit is wrong when I see it. You can disagree with me all you like, I don't take any offence. But even on the motherfucking ring walk, man, this is a normal Conor McGregor ring walk, okay? This is how he walks out the ring. Look at the fucking intensity in his eyes, man. It's all about the fight. It's all about, I can't wait to get in there and fucking put a beating on this guy. I am ready. And just watch the way he carries on shadow boxing the whole time. He's in the fucking zone, right? This is all about the fight, rehearsing the fight in his head over and over and over again. The fight that's about to happen. Now look at him. Looks like he's going to the fucking shop. Looks like he's going to walk the dog. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing. There is absolutely no intensity there. That doesn't look like a man who's about to have a fucking fight. Not his first fight in 5 years, where he should be a bit edgy, a bit twitchy.
There are moments in combat sports that leave the entire community speechless. Not because of a knockout, not because of a submission, but because of what happens outside the cage, in the aftermath, when the cameras are still rolling and the truth starts bleeding through the cracks. What is happening right now around Conor McGregor and his UFC 329 injury is one of those moments, and the voices speaking up about it are not casual fans on social media. They are professionals, people who have spent their careers inside gyms, inside cages, and inside the sport at its highest level. And what they are saying is shaking the combat sports world in a way that cannot be ignored. The claim is straightforward and it is devastating. That the injury McGregor used to exit UFC 329 was not what it was presented to be. That the narrative constructed around his withdrawal does not hold up under scrutiny. That when you place the available evidence next to the timeline of events, something does not add up. And within the MMA community, where authenticity is the most sacred currency a fighter can carry, that accusation carries enormous weight. To understand why this story has exploded the way it has, you need to understand the position Conor McGregor occupies in this sport. He is not simply a fighter. He has not been simply a fighter for a long time. He is a brand, a business, a media entity, and one of the most recognizable athletes on the planet. That level of fame brings a level of scrutiny that most fighters never have to face. Every statement McGregor makes is analyzed. Every training clip is studied. Every public appearance is measured against what he claims is happening behind closed doors. And that scrutiny is precisely why the professionals raising questions about this injury situation are being taken seriously rather than dismissed, because several things about the timeline have struck experienced voices in the sport as genuinely unusual. Analysts within the combat sports community have pointed out that the nature of the reported injury, the way it was communicated publicly, and the visual evidence available from McGregor's appearances in the period surrounding UFC 329 do not align cleanly with the severity of what was being described. These are not fans speculating wildly. These are people who understand what legitimate fight camp injuries look like, how they present physically, how they are managed, and how fighters typically behave when they are genuinely compromised. And what they are observing here is raising serious flags. The general sentiment among professionals who have studied this closely is not one of casual doubt. It is something sharper than that. There is a frustration building in certain corners of the MMA world that comes from a place of respect for the sport itself. Because when a fighter at McGregor's level withdraws from a major event under circumstances that do not fully add up, it does not just affect him. It affects the opponent who prepared for that fight. It affects the promotion that built the card around that fight. It affects the fans who purchased that card specifically to see that fight. The ripple effect of a false injury claim, if that is what this turns out to be, touches every corner of the sport. And there is history here that makes this conversation even more loaded. McGregor has navigated injury narratives before. He has had legitimate physical setbacks that were well documented and undeniable, but he has also operated in a space where the line between fight promotion and factual reporting has sometimes blurred in ways that left observers uncertain about what was real and what was constructed for maximum effect. That history is now being pulled back into the conversation, and it is making the current situation feel like part of a pattern rather than an isolated incident to several respected voices in the sport. Those who follow the sport carefully are not dismissing this. The questions being raised are specific. They center center on what was observed versus what was claimed, on what the medical documentation ultimately shows or fails to show, on why the communication around the withdrawal was handled the way it was, rather than with the straightforward transparency that a legitimate injury typically receives. These are uncomfortable questions, but they are the right questions to be asking. What makes this particularly significant from a legacy standpoint is where McGregor sits in his career right now. He is not a young prospect with decades ahead of him to rewrite narratives. He is a former two-division champion on the back end of a career that has been defined by breathtaking highs and increasingly complicated lows. Every decision he makes at this stage carries enormous weight for how he will ultimately be remembered. A legitimate injury is a human story. Every fighter gets hurt, the sport demands physical sacrifice, and the body eventually presents its bill. Nobody in the MMA community holds genuine injuries against a fighter, but a fabricated injury, or even the credible perception of one, is a different matter entirely. It touches the one thing that combat sports cannot afford to have questioned: courage, because at the center of every fighter's identity, regardless of their record or their status or their promotional value, is the belief that when it mattered, they showed up, that they did not find a way out when the exit became available, that the version of themselves they presented to the public was real. The moment that foundation is questioned, even partially, it changes how everything that came before is viewed, and that is the genuine danger of this situation for McGregor's legacy. Several respected voices have noted that the timing of this entire situation feels calculated in a way that a straightforward injury withdrawal typically does not. The information came out in pieces rather than all at once. The framing shifted as more details emerged, and the reaction from within the professional community, which normally moves on from injury news relatively quickly, has instead intensified as more people have spoken up and added their perspective to the conversation. That is not how genuine sympathy for an injured fighter typically unfolds. That is how a credibility crisis builds. The broader MMA community is now watching to see how this resolves. There are a limited number of directions this story can travel from here. McGregor can provide clear and verifiable medical documentation that settles the question definitively. He can address the accusations directly and with enough specific detail to satisfy the legitimate doubts being raised. Or the story continues to grow, the voices continue to multiply, and the perception of what happened at UFC 329 hardens into something that follows him permanently. What cannot happen, at this point, is for the situation to simply fade away quietly. The level of attention it has received, and the credibility of the voices raising concerns, have already moved this beyond the category of rumor or speculation. This is now a conversation the sport is having openly, and open conversations in combat sports tend to demand open answers. For the fighters and professionals who train every day, who push their bodies to genuine limits, who show up when everything in them is screaming to find an easier path, the authenticity question is not abstract, it is personal, and that is why the reaction within the professional community has carried such emotional weight. This is not just about Conor McGregor, it is about what the sport stands for and what it demands from the people who choose to compete in it. Where this goes next depends entirely on McGregor and on what the facts ultimately reveal. But one thing is already clear: the combat sports world is watching this more closely than any injury story in recent memory, and the professionals who have spent their lives inside this sport are not prepared to simply accept a narrative that does not stand up to scrutiny. So here is the question for you watching this right now. Based on everything that has come out, do you believe Conor McGregor's injury at UFC 329 was legitimate, or do you think the MMA professionals raising these questions are onto something real? Drop your honest take in the comments below, because this community deserves an honest conversation. And if you want to stay ahead of every major story, every controversy, and every breaking development in combat sports the moment it happens, subscribe now, because this is exactly the kind of content we bring you every single day.